Rabbi Zev Kitsis was one of the Baal Shem Tov's greatest students. He once had a bittersweet encounter with his Rebbe, for he was going on a long journey to Eretz Israel. Therefore, he requested of his rabbi to give him blessing and advice. Began the Baal Shem Tov, a man needs to always know that all his steps are coordinated, orchestrated by the Divine One. And therefore, a man needs to remember that wherever he may find himself is by divine providence. And he must be sure to think very long and hard before speaking or acting. If a person should ask him anything, he must take the time to really think it through before giving a response. With this advice, Reb Zev bid farewell, and off he went. The ship had been sailing for 2 weeks and stopped for a break at a small desert island. Reb Zev got out, very excited to see how isolated it was. He grabbed his prayer shawl and his tefillin, and off he went into the woods to daven, to pray to his Creator. He got so immersed in his prayer that he didn't even notice that the ship had begun to leave. By the time he had finished and made his way to the shore, it was a glimmer in the horizon, slowly fading away as it sailed off. He worried for a moment, but then realized, everything is divine providence. He turned, surveying the vast empty area before him. He decided to start looking for any sign of life, somewhere to seek refuge for the night. As it got darker and darker, all of a sudden he noticed a smoke rising from a certain area in the distance, and so he followed it. He was pleasantly surprised to come to a hut. As he knocked on the door, a man answered, an old man with a long beard who had distinctly Jewish sense to him. Reb Zev explained the situation, how he had been stranded there. Nevertheless, the man was super excited. He would love to host Reb Zev, he said. And so, as it was the day before the Sabbath, the man explained to him, don't worry, in a few days there will be another ship, but in the meantime, it's time to prepare for the Sabbath that is approaching. Reb Zev loved so much every moment with this man. He was clearly knowledgeable of all the commandments in the Torah, and he was very pious in that regard. He had great conversations with him, although the man remained quite mysterious. Whenever Reb Zev asked him of his origins, of his family, the man merely smiled, changed the subject, and so he never got much out of him. Nevertheless, he had a wonderful Sabbath with him, filled with song and learning and inspiration. Come Sunday morning, his host walked him to the shore to say goodbye. Reb Zev was sure that this time he would not miss his ship. He had his prayer shawl, he had his tefillin, his phylacteries with him, and he was ready to board. And as he was about to step up onto the ship, his host asked him, by the way, you said that you came from the Russia-Poland area, right? I was wondering, how are things for the Jews over there? A bit flustered, Reb Zev said, Baruch Hashem, we get by day to day, thank God. The man seemed satisfied. Reb Zev said his goodbye, and off he went onto the ship. As the ship took off, and he turned saying goodbye to this man, as the ship moved further and further away, all of a sudden it dawned on him the advice that his Rebbe had given him. He was supposed to think long and hard if asked a question by anyone. Certainly this was the kind of thing that the Rebbe had been hinting at. It distressed him so much that at the next stop, not even getting to Eretz Israel, he took another ship, headed back home. He eventually came into his Rebbe. He had been broken over this issue for weeks now. And as he came in, the Rebbe was obviously very enthusiastic, very excited to see him, as if he had been waiting for it. He asked Reb Zev to detail every moment from the moment he left until he came back. And once he got to that departing moment, as he was saying goodbye to this host on the island, the Rebbe was clinging to each and every word, hanging on to each and every detail. Finally, when Reb Zev told the Rebbe what he had said about the Jews in Poland and Russia to this host, the Rebbe put his head in his hand. And Reb Zev says, I know, I must have made a mistake somehow, but I came as soon as I realized I want to make a rectification. His Rebbe waved his hand. I'm afraid it's a little too late. You had such a priceless opportunity. You paid for it because you never managed to get to Eretz Yisrael. That was your punishment. That was your rectification. Nevertheless, let me tell you, there was a communication going on in the heavens. Avram Avinu, Avram our father, Isha Chesed, the man of kindness, pleaded with the Ribono Shel Olam, the master of the world, saying, God, look how hard life is for your Jews. They are suffering in exile. It is time to put an end to this, to give them their redemption. Responded the Creator, things aren't that bad. They're okay. A deal was struck. Avram was given permission to go down in disguise to meet a God-fearing and honest Jew who would tell him like it is. Said the Baal Shem Tov, had you only told him how hard things are for us and how much we await the redemption to save us each and every day, well, something could have been done. Nevertheless, you were not cautious with your words. And so, the Rebbe concluded his meeting with Reb Ze'ev on that note. We must always long for redemption, and we must always listen to the words of our Rebbeim.